This Sunday's Gospel begins by telling us that on the day of the resurrection, the apostles had locked themselves in the upper room because they were afraid. Of course, their fear means that it's not just the doors that are barricaded, but also their hearts. Nonetheless, Jesus appears to them. The glory of his resurrected body passes effortlessly through their locked doors and closed hearts, replacing their fears with his peace and joy. And then 8 days later, he appears to them again, but this time he does something different. He goes straight after the lost sheep, Thomas, whose heart was full of doubts and questions. He allows Thomas to see his body, the glorious wounds made by the nails and spear, and mercifully he changes Thomas's doubts into belief and reunites him with his brothers in the newborn church. And then Jesus breathes on them, gives them the Holy Spirit and the power and task of forgiving sins in his name. What today's Gospel gives us is the story of the beginning of the sacrament of reconciliation, Jesus' first gift to his church after his resurrection. Ever since that meeting in the upper room, that's been the church's mission, bringing the stray sheep back into the Good Shepherd's merciful care. Nearly 2,000 years after that encounter, during the great jubilee of the year 2000, Pope St. John Paul II established the second Sunday of Easter as a universal feast in the Church in honour of the Divine Mercy. In doing so, he was responding to a request made by Jesus himself in a private revelation to St. Faustina, who was a Polish nun. Jesus wanted us to rediscover the power of his divine mercy and so be filled with confidence and hope. But why is Jesus so keen that we be reminded of his boundless mercy? Well, because we need it. Because in so many ways we need his mercy now more than ever. Sin is like a deadly poison at work in our lives and in the world. Sin causes real damage to relationships with ourselves, with our families and friends, in our communities and in our countries and in our world. Sin causes a damage that only Christ can repair. That's the reality of sin, but it's also the reality of Christ's mercy. I read a story recently that really brought home to me what divine mercy is. It's a story about a mother and daughter, Maria and Cristina, who lived in Brazil. Maria was a poor widow and Cristina her 15-year-old daughter. They lived in a small Brazilian village, and for years they managed just about to get by on Maria's meagre salary. Cristina was beautiful and full of life and joy. She wanted to help her mother and wanted to start earning some money to support the family. She dreamed of moving to the big city and living an exciting life with glamorous people. Her mother, of course, tried to convince her that wasn't how life actually worked, and that a poor, uneducated girl alone in the big city would only find trouble. Cristina, however, was having none of it. One morning, Maria woke up to every parent's nightmare. Cristina's bed was empty. She knew immediately where her daughter had gone, and she set out to find her. On her way to the bus stop, she stopped by a small pharmacy and went into the photo booth. Spending as much as she could afford, she made dozens of black and white passport photographs of herself. With a handbag full of these photos, she boarded the bus and went to Rio de Janeiro. Maria knew that Cristina had no way of earning any money, but she also knew that, like many 15-year-olds, Cristina was stubborn, too stubborn to give up or admit she was wrong. When pride meets hunger, a human will do things that before were unthinkable, and that's what worried Maria. Maria began her search in the bars, cheap hotels and nightclubs in the area of the bus station. She also went to the areas frequented by prostitutes and looked there too. At each place, she left her picture taped to a notice board of a seedy hotel or stuck on the corner of a phone booth or anywhere else it might be noticed. And on the back of each photo, she wrote a note. Within a few days, Maria's money and photos were all gone, and reluctantly she boarded the bus back to her village. About a month later, Cristina happened to be coming down the stairs of a cheap hostel. Her face was drawn and tired, its youthfulness all gone, and her eyes, once so full of joy, were sunken and full of pain and fear. Her dream had become a nightmare. She felt hopeless and trapped. She was shamed and wanted to go home, yet her village was miles away. In many ways, it was too far away, too far for her to get to. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, her eyes caught the sight of a familiar face. She looked again, unbelieving at first, but there, unmistakably, was a picture of her mother. At the sight of her mother's picture, Christina's throat started to burn and her eyes welled up with tears. She walked across the hotel's lobby and removed the small photo. Written on the back was this simple invitation: whatever you've done, whatever you've become, it doesn't matter. Please come home. I love you. Christina did. Jesus is God's picture nailed to a Roman cross, inviting us to come home so he can save us from the destructive power of sin. Life in this world can so easily distract us from the truth of Jesus' divine mercy. That's why feasts like today are reminders to us of what's really important. If we want divine mercy to bear fruit in our own lives, then it's as easy as following the ABCs. A, ask for mercy. We read in the Gospel how Jesus gives us the sacrament of reconciliation. Use it. Jesus is waiting for us right there, ready to pour out his mercy upon us. How many times did I witness that during our 3 days of mercy in Holy Week? Of course, we can also pray for that same mercy to be given to others who, for whatever reason, don't trust Jesus or won't ask for it themselves. B, be merciful. The measure we receive divine mercy is the measure in which we are willing to give it out to others. That's not easy, of course, but neither was Good Friday. And on the cross, we have the supreme example of a life spent being merciful to others. Being merciful means doing the good and right thing for others, not because they deserve it, but because we want to follow in the footsteps of the Good Shepherd. And C, completely trust Jesus. Under the picture of the divine mercy are the words, Jesus, I trust in you. Every page of the Gospels shows us that we have nothing to fear when we turn towards Jesus. We can trust him because he is gentle and full of compassion. St. Thomas, after his encounter with the risen Jesus, utters the most beautiful profession of faith, my Lord and my God. If we want to make his words our own, if we too want to experience the same divine mercy as he did, then all we have to do is ask for it, be merciful ourselves, and completely trust in Jesus.